All right. So my first one is When Prophecy Fails. That's a book that I've been reading. And uh, it is about these cult groups of people with distinct prophecies that are supposed to be filled in a specific amount of time. And when they don't get fulfilled, when it fails, these sociologists like looked into the group and they worked their way into the group and they started studying like behavior, whether or not people fell away when it uh, didn't come through, or uh, the most interesting thing that I found was that people actually start evangelizing or proselytizing more strongly when the prophecy fails. So the idea that the authors of the book, it's Leon Festinger is like the head author, and then there's like associated other sociologists that helped with that, and he found that, or he theorized that they're proselytizing more strongly because it failed in order to convince more people around them to believe it, so that there would be more support for something that they don't want to be false. So this idea came up on a podcast that I did recently with Joel Carini, and we were talking about it. And uh, I think that this is true of people that probably, like, I just am familiar with Christians, but it's probably true of people that are kind of in a scientific community, or any type of community that's based on believing a certain thing that's not necessarily 100% materially provable. And so within scientism, you'd have this, or within Christianity or Buddhism, whatever. And so it's this idea that we don't believe what it is that we say that we believe strongly enough to be comfortable just believing it to be true and sort of like holding it with open hands. And so that leads us to this place of like increased proselytizing, where we have to make sure that everybody thinks what we think. And I think that leads to dark places of tribalism and like not listening to other people, and um, yeah, lots of difficult places because of the fear that we don't know what we're talking about. And anyway, I've just been finding that super, super fascinating because you would think that the people that have the strongest proclamations would believe them the most, but it's actually, I think, the reverse. And it's because of like a sunk cost fallacy. They have the most to lose if they're wrong, but they also might be getting evidence that suggests that they're wrong. Uh, and I don't necessarily mean Christians like generally or by and large. I'm talking about certain doctrines that you might hold to be super, super important doctrines uh, that aren't necessarily. They become, I don't want to use the phrase that everybody uses. They become your favorite doctrine, and then you are a proselyte for that specific doctrine. And if people don't believe it, that's how you know if they're in or they're out, if they're smart or they're not smart, if they're like awake or whatever. But the reason that you're doing that is because of a intense feeling of like uncertainty underlying your position on a certain topic.
Mm.
Any of that
Is it
sound interesting to you?
is the argument like the more outspoken someone is about a truth claim, the more likely they are unstable in their security in having that conviction?
Um, no, I think it's not so much about being outspoken. It's about needing others to conform to your way of thinking.
Mm.
That's what I would say. Because uh, I think that it's perfectly reasonable to invite people to believe what you believe, but to force it upon somebody, uh, conquistador style. You know, like you are all Catholics because we landed our boat here. That is not. That would not be. That would be an example of that. Like, uh, you must think this way because if you don't, then what if it's not true? You know?
Mm,
And I guess the importance of it to me is like I think that the things that like I believe Jesus, but it's not because everybody else around me believes him, you know? Like probably to some extent. I'm not like immune from social influence. I'm just saying I I'm not uh reliant on the people around me to think the same as me in order to substantiate what it is that I'm believing, you know?
mm,
Like uh I would like to believe that it's true with or without their substantiation.
mm.
And then hopefully, I think based on this little note from the book, hopefully I could move into a space of like holding more open-handedly, like, oh, that's interesting. Why do you think that? You know, like that question is not something that the people I'm talking about are asking. They're
Mm.
not saying, I'm a fundamentalist and I believe in XYZ. Why do you think what you think? You know, like they know why that person thinks what they think, and they know that it's wrong to think it or even talk about it. So unless you're going to admit that God hates, you know, whatever type of person you are, then we're not going to be able to have a conversation. It's like, well, we all know that God doesn't like your type of person, but if you could be more like me,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
my type of people.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, I feel like it's hard to like. I'm having a hard. I guess I just have to read the book, right? Like I'm having a hard time trying to like um want to say extirpate, but that also sounds way too bombastic. Trying to find like, is this applicable outside of cult mentality, right? Because I feel like with the cult thing, like that adds a whole another element of the environment is completely different than like everyday living. You know, like these individuals are their psychology is already really hard to like generalize.
yeah. Yes, I think. Okay, I'm not going to be able to like quote this in a way that is super factual, but from what I remember from reading the book, the people that were presenting it um, were weird, like at the top, but then also some of the most normal people adopted it as sort of like a source of meaning. So there was one group called the Seekers, and they were like a UFO cult that had some lady at the top, and she was like, I think her husband died. She was grieving, or no, her husband was like her second in command, and he was like he was uh a
Some of the
moderate at first, like
Heaven's Gate cult, where
um
they like did a mass. You know, I actually okay.
no, no, these ones they eventually they just stopped kind of
Oh,
the group stopped meeting. That was essentially the end of it. But like for a for a critical portion of their journey, it was like, okay, the lady at the top is a lunatic. She's talking to this being. She thinks it's Jesus, and then she's like, well, it's not. It's an alien. And then she called him like Big Brother, and it was Jesus, but he was an alien.
it's
So
an
it was like
ascended
very
master.
confusing. Oh
Yeah, look at
yes,
that.
very good.
Yeah.
And and anyway, this all just to explain that all of her people were just like from some small town, and they were like, "Oh no way, this is awesome," and they jumped in on the thing. And I get what you're saying about cults, although my impression of cults is that uh like cults and culture share etymological roots, and I think that we deny that very often. It's like in reality, a culture is nothing but a cult that's like acceptable to everybody. You know, like it's like a more broadly appealing or logical or wise or the you know,
Just like
it's
a
good.
mob mentality type of.
Sort of. Yeah, it's just like the things that we all agree to generally participate in. So like I don't know precisely how to define like the mini cult things that pop up and happen, but they're they're typically like uh authoritarian, like one person, and then that person sort of like disseminates doctrine to the rest of the followers, and they follow.
Hmm.
Um, but with this thing, like uh, I mentioned it in the podcast I did where it came up. It's like when you when you when you want to create a culture, you're very dangerously close to employing all of the techniques of a cult leader. Like the person that's going to buy more into your corporate culture is not going to be the person with a good, like, solid family structure around them or self worth or whatever. There's this idea of like insecure overachievers make the best employees. And it's people that find their self worth in achievement. So if you can tag that person and make them responsible for whatever your business needs, they will overachieve because it's their neuroses. Like, if I don't overachieve, I'm not good enough. Like, so that's really dark if you're targeting those people and then laying this burden on them
Yeah.
for your own gain. That's super dark, but it's not if you just don't think about it. Like, just look at the numbers. This guy's very productive, we should use him. And so I think the same thing's true with um some sort of like, there's probably a spiritual equivalent within Christian communities. And I'm not, again, I'm only saying this in one specific sense. It's not like generalized to all situations, but the danger remains uh, that when you're trying to build a culture, which lots of churches and Christian communities are, you're you're at the border of tipping over into this cult territory where uh, you could, you see a lot of pastors fall. Not everyone does, but that stuff happens, I think, because of the tendency to want to believe one source of information. There's a lot of certainty in that, um, and yeah, and then this proselytizing effect, I think, kicks in when people invest themselves uh, in a certain leader in a certain community, and then try to uh, gain their meaning or sense of value from that. Because if that's going to fall away, then it's like, well, no, no, no. Let's make sure that we all think the same thing and that this is true, at least to us.
Yeah. For the record, extirpate did not mean what I thought it meant. Extirpate means to root something out or destroy it. It does not mean to like pull something out and then apply it to another situation. Uh,
Juxtapose.
sure,
Is
it
that?
works. That works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think. I mean, I think it comes down to even. Um, there's a quote that I've been ruminating on. It's a Kierkegaard quote. Go figure. Um, and I'm trying to remember where it was, but pretty much it goes like, um, you know, it's right here. No person who has learned that to exist as the individual is the most terrifying thing of all will be afraid of saying it is the greatest. Um,
Hmm.
and it's that right there. It's like we're all scared to be individuals and to be, and we're not really encouraged by culture to be an individual, right? like, and
Mm-hmm.
normally the ones who are encouraging you to be individual are very dangerous, right? Like a Nietzsche, like a Camus, uh, and they're associated with it could start getting anarchic. You become a sheep without a shepherd, and oddly enough, you start to become a shepherd. You want to be a shepherd too. Uh, that's the kind of the hypocrisy of it all. Um, and so there's no getting around this whole talk of being an individual. Really, it's an impossibility in the sense of, and that's not how Kierkegaard would. We've already done a full episode. I don't need to go into Kierkegaardian
Yeah,
philosophy.
yeah.
Um, but to be an individual in relation to the absolute, because it's not good for man to be alone. That's a fact. So we are social creatures. Uh, we can't live without culture or a herd mentality, right? Like we're it's in our nature, and not even in our fallen nature. It's how we were made to be, um,
Mm.
and Christ redeems it. That's why I think a Nietzsche is dangerous because Um, to try to be an individual without having a shepherd. Uh, it's like the whole like even like Orwellian Animal Farm type situation. Like the thing that you start to like hate and resent and want to like overthrow. Uh, Inevitably you end up just you're the one who's the oppressor now. Like you're
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
captor. You broke out of your captivity and bondage of the opiate of the masses, and then now you are the one trying to deliver a new opiate for the masses. Like
Yeah.
because there's no escaping it. There has to be someone on top. There has to be coordination, and there has to be organization. And for organization, there has to be an organizer. So
Yeah.
a shaper of culture. It's a scary thing.
It's making me think of like Jesus's example of like the leaders serve the followers.
Hmm.
Like because I think that typically a leader is served by, or yeah, I think is served by the his followers.
Yeah.
And so if that's in a business setting or a sports setting or whatever, it's like that's one model. Uh, like you could think of like a selfish basketball player that's like, I'm the best on the team. So everybody pass me the ball. I'm going to take all the shots. I'm going to get all the stats, etc. But I think that the Jesus model is like, uh, is maybe like more of a distributor from the point guard position. You could shoot when necessary, but like you make other people make plays, and that's actually better because you are more efficient by allowing other people to score for the team and not having to do it all by yourself. Um, but it's just making me think like, so that hierarchy remains of like you're the team leader, but then the effectiveness of your team and even your role on it is completely different. So like you can take the structure and still invert the purpose of it,
Mm.
because what you were saying is like in the Animal Farm situation, you're you're looking at something, hating it, wanting to reorganize it, but then you become what you wanted to change in the first place. And it's like, well, I think that's because the allure of the power of what you hate. You just hate that you're under the boot. But as soon as you could put the boot on somebody else's neck, then you like the boot.
Yeah.
You see this in politics all the time. Like whoever's in, they just take it the other direction to the same extent that the last people were. But if you're observing this monstrosity of a federal government that we have, it's like uh, none of this is constitutional. Not really at all. Like if we go 200 years back, this is the
It's
opposite of what we're
unrecognizable.
looking for.
Yeah.
But now, exactly. And so the reason that is because each time that one side gets in, they advance the football a little bit further, and then the next people get in. They're like, well, there's precedence for this, but we're doing it for good. And
Yeah.
so, uh,
More executive
yeah. So
orders.
anyway, yeah. But the opposite would be to, in this case, to reduce the size of the government, to reduce the power and influence that it has.
Yeah.
Uh, but from any point of leadership, I think it would be like rather than to accrue more power, you would, I think, I don't know, like distribute more love or something. I've been opposing love and power recently, and I think that it's a pretty interesting dichotomy, I guess. Like they oppose one another as far as I can tell. And the Bible obviously is a proponent of love, claiming that God is love. And our world or culture, our philosophy as a culture is basically that the world is dominated by power.
Mm.
And I think that indicates like sort of our obsession with getting leverage, getting the upper hand on whatever it is, an economic opportunity, a group of people, a individual person, whatever it is. We're looking for power at every turn. But if we were looking for love from the same positions that God puts us in or that we get ourselves into, I think that you would start to see maybe some kingdom of God stuff there.
It's funny we're talking about this too. It's actually really timely. I'm glad that we are because um, I'm gonna start teaching sixth grade in about 2 days. Um, and in the last like 3 weeks I've been in existential crisis mode, but probably the healthiest existential crisis I've ever endured thus far. Which I'm
Hmm.
proud to say. I'm very proud to say. Jesus, he's really. I can feel that he's prepared me and walked me through many things that has prepared me for this particular um, leap, and it's an easier leap than would have been otherwise. But nonetheless, anyways, all that there's a lot that I can deviate from that. But a verse that's been on my mind a lot, or a passage that's been on my mind a lot, is in Matthew 23. It's when Jesus is exposing Pharisaism, um, and it's when he's all talking about the scribes and the Pharisees have seated themselves in the chair of Moses. Therefore, all they tell you, do and observe, but do not do according to their deeds, for they say things and do not do them. And he kind of starts launching into what he has against the Pharisees. But then he says this, but do not be called rabbi, for one is your teacher, and you are all brothers. Do not call anyone on earth your father, for one is your father, he who is in heaven. Do not be called leaders, for one is your leader, that is Christ. But the greatest among you shall be your servant. Whoever exalts himself shall be humbled, whoever humbles himself shall be exalted. And I think that's dead on to what we're talking about here. Um, and maybe that's why I even interjected that, because it's been something I've been thinking about a lot too. And so even thinking in terms of that, like, it's so interesting to think about classrooms. Like they can easily turn into like little cults, you know? Like I
Yeah.
am in control here. I'm the despot. What I say goes. If not, I'm gonna bring the rod. And if you're great, I'm gonna throw you some treats, you know? And then how you act when you behave, I'm gonna be close to you. When you disbehave, I'm gonna separate myself from you and even cause the others to separate from you. You're gonna be exiled over here. And you know, it's like just all these ways of training. I just been thinking about it a lot. It's like I'm terrified. Honestly, it's a terrifying thing to be stepping into. Like, uh, especially, yeah. It's just teaching is. It's just such a crazy thing when you really, well, if you really sit and think, and maybe even do a thought experiment yourself. Like, okay, if I were to lead a classroom for a whole entire school year, like, and I see, like, am I even aware of how I could easily start slipping into these exact things that I hate, you know, and allowing the things in myself that I hate to lead because it's just more expedient. It gets more things done. You know, it's no secret that a totalitarian state gets more results, right? So maybe if I just have a totalitarian classroom, I can get more and more work done, right? And they produce more, and then uh,
They produce more for the people at the top,
yeah,
right? So if you're teacher centric, you want the benefits to accrue to the teachers, then there's one way to run the class, you know?
yeah. So I've just been thinking about even just government, right? Like that's what we're really, if you're really trying to backwards engineer this thing, like, um, anyways, it's there's a lot. It's been a lot, and it's honestly an impossibility uh, to try to figure out. But nonetheless, it is an interesting thing about this whole being a leader and being a teacher, being uh, a father, even, you know, like trying to be, what type of role are we stepping into, and what type of role do we desire? Why do we desire it? You know, um, and I just like, that's the whole like exalting yourself. Yeah, I don't know, but that's just something I've been thinking about a lot. How Jesus goes into here, like, what is leadership supposed to look like in the kingdom? And it's really to say, like, there's only one who's our leader. There's only one who's our father. There's only one who's our teacher, and that is God. And that's how you properly orient yourself. And then so, um, I think this is a big deal. You know, obviously, it's not like a law where it's like, well, if I call someone teacher, that means I'm like disobeying what Jesus said. It's like, well, it's the principle of the matter here. He goes on to, he's juxtaposing, right, good leaders from bad leaders, and uh, then he launches in like one of the most intense passages in all the Gospels, the woes of the Pharisees, right? Like, and just what he's condemning them of. And um, you know, we like to read this passage and be like, yeah, those guys suck. Like when you
Yeah,
think
yeah.
about like, okay, if I were in a position of power, I easily can slip right into these exact things, right? Like I could start shutting people off from the kingdom of heaven, And I don't even enter myself because I got a good thing. I got my own kingdom here, right? Like, why would I want to get in the kingdom of heaven? In fact, I'm going to bring people to my kingdom, and I'm going to shut them off from the kingdom of heaven as well. I can start devouring widows' houses and for a pretense make long prayers. It's like doing this in the secret, but then in public I'm praying great. Like, so these type of
Mm-hmm.
things, like we all have it in us, and these cults, right? Like that's exactly what even these small congregations, that these things happen every day, right? And we see it every day. And we try to like make it like an isolated incident, like, oh yeah, that's because that was a weird cult, or yeah, that's because I
Yeah.
don't know, they really like Darwin, blah blah blah. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but we all can become blind guides who strain out a gnat and swallow a camel, like
Yeah.
in our
Yeah.
context.
No, that's a really good point, because I think that's why I say a lot of what I say is to point out, like, hey, I think uh I think that the group that I'm now de facto a part of, because I believe in Jesus, I think we struggle in certain areas, like talking about this or pointing out other people's flaws with their philosophies, or like apologetics, or like if they're all focused on how other people are wrong for believing science, it's like, uh, that's not really giving a reason for why you believe what you believe. I guess, like,
Yeah,
I believe it because the scientists are wrong. Like, okay, I guess. That doesn't seem like a strong foundation, but um, the point that I'm trying to make is like, uh, I need to make sure that when I say those things, like, I'm not falling into the same trap that I think I'm pointing out. Like, uh, it's important to be circumspect when you are addressing a fault in someone else, because it's like you might be able to point that out because you actually are intimately familiar with that from doing the same thing. You have that same problem, and so gives you insight into it. It's like that. I don't know. It's just way easier to be like, "Ah, I'm not like the Pharisees, or I'm not like the Nazis. I'm not like the bad guys in history.
yeah,
I'm the good guy. I would be the good guy if I had lived then, but unfortunately didn't get a
yeah,
chance.
yeah. And there's nothing
And
like that going on today. So I don't have
no, right.
I don't have
Yeah.
the opportunity to be so profoundly
Yeah.
virtuous.
Literally wearing my slave made Nike dry fit. Like, okay,
Yeah.
great. I'm not doing great.
But yeah, it's like it's such a tricky thing too about even a verse that's also been on my mind a lot was all the ones having to do with teaching, right? Like James talks about, let not many of you want to become teachers because you're held to a higher standard and you will be judged according to that standard, which is it should be a high standard, right? In fact, it's the highest. And even Jesus says, right, like, um, woe to you if you cause one of these little ones to stumble, because he says it would be better for you than if a millstone was tied around neck and you were thrown into the ocean than cause one of these little ones to fall away. Um, and so that's been heavy upon me too, just thinking about that. Like, if I cause anyone to fall away from the faith or fall away from pursuing Jesus, in all ways, right? In any little way, if I cause someone to not grow closer to Jesus in this area of their life or in this area of their character development or what have you, it's like that's a terrifying thought. It'd be better for me if I had a millstone tied around my neck and thrown to the ocean. And so, uh, even get on here on a podcast and start trying to like help people learn things. It's like, wow, that's it's a slippery slope. It's a super slippery
You just
slope.
got to go to an open mic, and then this is a comedy podcast, and then you're
Yeah,
good. You
that's
can
right.
say
You
whatever you
say
want.
whatever you want. That's right. Yeah. This
You're more likely to release like a rap EP,
I tried.
and
I tried once upon a time.
well, there you go.
Yeah.
You're just a rapper. What do
I'm
you
not a
know?
rapper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. All right. You got anything?
I got a lot, but I don't know which one I want to actually share. I mean, I even shared a little bit of it right there, but um, one that I really enjoyed. Okay, so there's this one day. Okay, hold on. So, like I said, last couple of weeks I've been doing a lot of um, internal work, let's say. Um, and yeah, I woke up like 3 weeks ago. I was in like a I'm scattered, dude. Okay, so I shared on an episode a while ago how I was, didn't have a job, didn't I dropped out of school for a little bit, and then I was in between. I was in this transition period of about to go to Silver City and start teaching. Well, now here we are, and 3 weeks ago, I woke up at like it was probably like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. After like being up all night the night before, like doom scrolling on YouTube Shorts and like Instagram Reels. I'm like looking at my activity the last like week has been like hours on Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts and in YouTube. But now I just like woke up that day like, oh, what the hell am I doing? Like just the reality of everything. It's because also moving to a new place, it's like I'm in a place where I'm like unfamiliar. So I was doing well when I
Mhm.
first got here, but then like when it becomes more comfortable, I start going back to what I'm familiar with. And so I'm going back into a routine that's like this is not sustainable and it's not conducive to the change that God is bringing about in my life. He's entrusted me with this new occupation and this new role to be stepping into. And so uh I I like just kind of just repented a lot. I started fasting, even fasting like doom scrolling, fasting video games, fasting. I spent a lot of time on video games too. All the stuff, all the diversions, all the distractions. Um, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just stop and start reading. I started reading a lot. I started reading a book called The Mountain Is You, which I didn't, I haven't finished it, but I think I got what I needed from it, honestly. Started reading a book called Boundaries, which was by Dr. Townsend, and some other guy. And then started reading Pensée by Pascal again. That's like one of my favorite books. It's like revisiting an old friend. I read that when I was in high school at a place where I was just like upside down in my worldview. Um, and reading Anthony DeMello, that book that we did a passage from. I'm doing that and reading the Bible. I'm going through Second Chronicles. Well, I was actually in First Chronicles, but so I've been reading a lot. I've been thinking a lot about just like self help mindsets and even rethinking like the stigma that surrounds self help. That topic in evangelical circles, um, as well as helping out. I've been establishing my social life here, getting deeper into the community. I've been doing a lot. It's been a long and prepping to start teaching, working on my college class. But um, I say all this to say, I I got to a place where I was recognizing that every time I felt the sensation of boredom, I associated one with a negative emotion. I saw that as a negative emotion, and then I start feeling my body automatically going to whatever diversion that's like most readily available to me. And it was just so interesting to be in a place where I'm like really just meditating, being very conscientious, trying to maintain consciousness really for the whole duration of me being awake until I go to bed, right? Um and just recognize how much I'm just like a literal addict, right? It's the same mechanism that I did even with porn, with alcohol, with weed when I was younger. But now it's just like more socially acceptable things. So therefore I don't think twice about it. But it's like it's addict mentality
Yeah.
101, right? Like I don't even want to go to YouTube, but my body just naturally, as soon as I like stop being mindful and as soon as I start coasting, my body's on autopilot going straight for my coping mechanism, which is some form of diversion. And so that was just really crazy to me. But this one day in particular, I was writing down a lot of the quotes that were standing out to me, and I kind of want to just read these quotes as they stood out, um, in the order that I wrote them down throughout the day. This is a quote from DeMello, and it says, "Getting rid of attachments is a perfectly delightful task. If the instrument you use to rid yourself of them is not willpower or renunciation, but sight. All you need to do is open your eyes and see that you do not really need the object of your attachment at all. That you were programmed, brainwashed into thinking that you could not be happy or you could not live without this person or thing." And that was just a thing on. It was actually he was pulling from the verse of the rich young ruler, and he walked away sad because he had many possessions. And that's where he's pulling this meditation from about getting rid of attachments. Like our attachments are truly robbing us of joy and happiness, and But I love that right there. Like, it's not by willpower or renunciation, because I feel like many times in my life, and the reason why this mechanism is still here is because I renounced alcohol, I renounced porn, I renounced these things, but uh, I didn't actually have my heart cleansed from this coping mechanism, which was self sabotage, right? Like, and so through the renunciation, the source of the issue wasn't ever really addressed, which is that, like, I have a program in my mind that I associate boredom or uh, let's say a free moment. I associate that if I'm not occupied with something, I associate with a negative. There's a negative connotation applied to
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
sensation. It's even a bodily sensation, right? Like in a mental, it's my whole entire body's involved in what's going on, right? And so with that, it's like my body wants to gravitate towards what's comfortable. And in that Mountain Is You book, it was laying out that, like, uh, laying that out that, like, we gravitate towards what's most comfortable, and what's most comfortable is defined by what's more habituated, what's familiar, because
Mm.
you habituate this all the time. So therefore, that's what defines your comfort zone. And so every time you try to go outside that comfort zone, or you're outside it for too long, there's negative emotions and sensations that are associated with that, which only create this codependent thing to this attachment. Now I'm blending terminologies, but um, that's why this attachment thing was really standing out to me. Is like not by willpower or renunciation, but by sight, to truly see, like, no, the way that God wants me to live my life and operate, being self-controlled, actually having prudence and discretion and liberty to, like, I am free and I have control of myself. I ought to have control of myself. That's what being conscientious even means, right? Like, to truly be aware and I'm making the choice to do what I'm doing rather than just like going on autopilot, right? So anyways, uh recognizing that, like, to see that this way is better, not just to renounce because this thing is bad, but to actually make the decision to choose the other thing because I know it's actually, I see that it's better. The next quote was from that Boundaries book I was talking about. It's Cloud, Dr. Cloud and Dr. Townsend. Uh, and it says, the other aspect of limits that is helpful when talking about boundaries is setting our own internal limits. We need to have spaces inside ourselves where we can have a feeling, an impulse, or a desire without acting it out. We need self control without repression. We need to be able to say no to ourselves. This includes both our destructive desires and some good ones that are not wise to pursue at a given time. Internal structure is a very important component of boundaries and identity, as well as ownership, responsibility, and self control. And so that thing to have self control without repression. Now it's like one's renunciation. Now it's like I want to actually feel this impulse, feel like when I get the boredom and I feel the impulse, like to truly acknowledge it, not just like try to hide away from it, but like I acknowledge this. I acknowledge that I want to do this even, but I'm saying no. And so I'm not repressing this
Mm.
desire either. I'm fully feeling it out. And then I'm making the conscious choice to say no. Um, and so that was really helpful too, like without renunciation and without repression, and to really create an internal structure, which is crucial to identity, as well as ownership, responsibility, and self control. And setting a boundary within yourself so that you can also set boundaries outside of yourself as well. Like it starts, that's like that Peterson thing, like, right? First make your bed and
Yeah.
then try to change the world. This was from Kierkegaard, Purity of the Heart, and it's out of context, but for the eager traveler who travels lightly along the way does not in this fashion learn to know his way, as well as a wayfarer with a heavy burden. The one who merely strives to get on does not learn to know the way, as well as the remorseful man. The eager traveler hurries forward to the new, to the novel, and indeed away from experience, but the remorseful one who comes behind laboriously gathers up experience. And he was talking about how remorse and repentance are like two guides on our walk with Jesus. And he's talking about like
Mm.
the importance that remorse is, and to truly like to allow it to be trained by it, right? Remorse calls you back, repentance calls you towards where you're supposed to. Um, and so that really stood out to me. Like I recognize that I gravitate towards the novel. I'm obsessed with novelty. And been thinking about even my childhood, why that is, even my relationship with my parents. And so um, anyways, I'm not gonna get into all that. A lot of psychology there, but um, this was the next quote. Actually, I don't know if I should read this one because I've been recognizing, like, I don't. I almost, like even earlier, I almost said the S word about offing yourself. Like Uh,
Oh, yeah.
this is I started reading Camus, The Myth of Sisyphus, just because I've always wanted to read it, and um, the whole entire point of that is pretty much like why not off yourself from the standpoint of a nihilist, right? He's nihilistic and he's trying to make the argument of like why not do that. And so I don't know. This quote could trigger some people. I don't know if I want to do that. I don't think it'd be wise. But the heart of the quote was talking about weariness comes at the end of the acts of a mechanical life. But at the same time, it inaugurates the impulse of consciousness. And so, like, when you're in this mechanical, just like not really thinking, but just doing, and you're in this habituated lifestyle, and then one day you wake up and you ask why. And then, like, you feel the weariness of just mechanical life, and it activates consciousness. Um, and it leads to, a dilemma, right? So,
Mhm.
that was something that stood out to me too, this mechanical life. And so I was just like, really just weighing these things out, um, and trying to make the choice of, I'm going to do this hard thing. This was a quote the day before from The Mountain Is You. It is essential that you learn to take action before you feel like doing it. Taking action builds momentum and creates motivation. These feelings will not come to you spontaneously. You have to generate them. You have to inspire yourself. You have to move. You have to simply begin and allow your life and your energy to reorient itself to prefer the behaviors that are going to move your life forward, not the ones that are keeping you held back. And I wrote under it, restructure your comfort zone. Um, and obviously, it's self-helpy rhetoric, and so some people are turned off by that. I am turned off by it, but at the same time, it's helpful to recognize, like, even Proverbs is self-helpy if you want to go that route, right? Like, so,
Mhm.
anyways, it's like to recognize, like, I'm not gonna like just somehow just one day wake up and start choosing good habits. It's like I have to want to do it, and I have to start doing it, and then I have to endure the suck of restructuring my comfort zone. And it sucks.
Yeah.
It like really sucks. Your whole body. I don't know if people have ever done an ice bath, but it's like similar to that. Like you hit a wall, like right with this like, uh, and then you gotta go past the wall. Like it's just like you hear a point of resistance where like your body is telling you like, this sucks. This is hard. This is maybe even bad. It's like red alert, DEFCON 5. It's like we're moving down
Yeah.
DEFCON 4. Like, but if you just like, and that's where like I would say you got to press into Christ, right? To again, like what DeMello was saying, like it's not willpower or renunciation. It's truly by His Spirit, and it's by pressing into prayer and asking Him to help you to see, like, no, I truly want Your way. And this is in line with what it means to be godly, right? Discipline yourself for the sake of godliness, to exercise the fruit of self control. Control yourself, like actually take control. You've been granted liberty. I've been granted liberty, right? And so I got to take control. It's not wicked to speak like this. And for some reason, there's even
Yeah.
programming in my mind to associate this with like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Like, there's an element where it's like you got to pull up something. I mean, shoot, like
Yeah.
grab a hold
Yeah.
of something and put some effort in. Like uh,
Yeah.
even in your prayer life, like that takes effort, um, and that's the only way you're going to do it.
Yeah. Um, the conscientious thing that you said earlier really stuck with me because I saw this thing from science. I don't know where it came from. Some study, a survey that was tracking personality trait uh, personality traits across time. So for the last 10 years, they got data on X number of people, and they showed that neuroticism is rising. This is across the big five model, so the five different things. Neuroticism is rising, agreeableness is falling, and extroversion is sort of steady, but it's in decline. And the findings are pretty consistent across all categories, like age categories, but the most precipitous decline is in conscientiousness in 16 to 39 year
Mm.
olds. And I just, I never, you said that conscientious means what you were just talking about, like to take control of your life and do something about it. And
And to like be
I never
aware,
really
like,
associated it. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I just didn't associate that with agency. That's what I would call that. And so like it just clicked for me because I think like one thing I know about the conscientious personality trait is that it's the highest predictor of success in a person's life, like, in like financial or career success. And so that's interesting because it's more stable than like intelligence or, other things that you would think might contribute to success. It's actually conscientiousness as a personality trait. And so for that to be falling is super, super interesting because it's a personality trait, which is
Mm.
supposedly somewhat immutable. But in this case, it seems like for whatever reason, uh, socially or societally, we're seeing a decline in younger people.
Yeah.
And uh, and so anyway, yeah, one of the biggest things that I want to encourage myself, I want to be encouraged in. And so then to the extent that I can, I want to encourage other people in. It's like I had a guy, his name's Jay Yang. You could check out the past episode. It was a great interview.
Mhm.
He wrote a book called You Can Just Do Things. And the whole point of it is this: you could just do things, like you are a person
Mhm.
and you can take action and you can make stuff happen. And everyone throughout history has just done things. That's how they did what they did. And that's why they're notable historical figures. That's why you know about them, is because they did things.
Mhm.
And so don't sit around and think like, life is just happening to me. I don't have any agency. I don't have any control over what's happening in my life.
Or what's happening in my
So yeah, it
mind
sounds
even. Like, that's where
for
it
sure.
starts.
And one of the things that you were talking about is what is happening in your mind, and you have the agency to allow it to happen in your mind. Like, uh, let alone just like the thoughts that you're thinking, but the content that you're importing
Mhm.
into your mind. Like, uh, yeah, I'm gonna repost on my Substack, Ian Quest, um, a blog that I put out a few months ago, and people like liked it, commented on it, and that's rare. Mostly that doesn't happen for me. But I think that uh, my favorite part of it was the I just said that like one of the most striking findings from this. I did a week of no social media, and one of the most striking findings was that I knew, like I was more aware. I was thinking about the impact that social media had on me, and I knew the thought that I was supposed to have about every story that somebody brought up.
Mm.
Like, oh, did you see Trump did this? Oh, did you see that the women's swimming team in Pennsylvania with the man who's a lady? All of this stuff. I was like, why do I know what I'm supposed to think when these people are bringing up random? We all know the same thing because we're all consuming the same thing, and it's like nobody has an original thought on these topics. It's all, well, I think that person X is right about their opinion or whatever. It's all we have this observing intellectual role. Like we don't participate by thinking about things. We participate by assenting to them. Like,
Mm.
oh yes, Tucker Carlson has it right, or oh yes, this person that I follow on Substack, he's a niche guy, but he's totally got it right. It's like, think your own thoughts,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
anyway, so being aware of what is being imported as a thought into your mind is
Mhm.
super critical.
I was another quote that stood out. I was rumbling through some an old journal. It's actually a journal that I started when I went through my last existential crisis that was comparable to this. Um, I was really wrestling with the concept of persona, character, identity, and yada yada yada. But in that same journal, there was this quote from Jordan Peterson. I was listening to I labeled it like Peterson lecture on existentialism, and it's just this quote out of context. So I don't really, I don't know what the heck he was talking about. But it's just a good quote. It says, "Changing personality means changing habits of action, presumption, and perception." And I've been like clinging to that a lot. Like habits of action, presumptions, and perceptions shape your personality. And so when you're kind of bringing
Mm,
up like the personalities are immutable, it's like, well, I don't know. Yes, there's definitely you're predisposed because of DNA and genes, and even I don't claim to understand how that works at all, but there are definitely predispositions that you're just born with, right? Like That's a fact. But at the same time, like you have the ability to, and I think personality, this is how I come to understand it, that persona is, the word literally comes from like the sound coming from a mask. That's the etymology of persona. And so it's like your, and ality is like being, right? So it's like you are in the state of being a persona. And so you're filling this role. And a lot of the times in culture, because you don't have any sense of identity, and I would argue that you have no sense of identity without, just like what we're talking about with this cult mentality, without having a leader, like without having someone who, whoever you allow, you have to allow someone to dictate your identity. You can't really define it for yourself. I think that's true. Um, and you can spend time with that. You can argue it, but at the same time, like you're being discipled by somebody, and
Hmm.
from since you're young, you cannot. You weren't just born just like self sufficient, and nor are you self sufficient even right now if you're honest with yourself. Um,
Hmm.
and so therefore, like I do think there's a, your identity is not found within. You can't go deeper in. It's formed, shaped by something outside of you, and you find your sense of identity in things that's not yourself. You can't just like find your own identity within yourself. That's another thing that people can argue, and that's why I disagree with self help rhetoric too, because it can start going that route. But identity is something that is like, it's part of your individuality, and individuality is like what's indivisible. Like you can, if you were to divide, take away from you, like those things aren't really part of your individuality. But the things that like if you, that are essential to who you are, if you were to take this away, I'm no longer who I am, right? So it's like that's where your identity is found. It's like the bedrock, right? Um, Either you can find it on sand or you can find it on the words of Jesus. So, and build your life upon that rock, right? His, what he says is true. You find your identity in Christ, and then your character is like your dispositions, your predispositions, presumptions, your presuppositions, and even the way that you having prudence, right? Like having the ability to like have forethought and like make judgments that are sound. These are parts of your character. Your character informs those things. And then persona is like you put on different ones all throughout the day. Like I'm playing the role of, right now I'm on this podcast, right? Like the way I'm talking now is not the same as if I was out like having coffee with somebody, right? Like I am filling some type of role, but the the way to be healthy, I think, is not to find your identity in the role, in the occupation. That's why even in America, our first question we're asking, who is somebody? Oh, what do you do? It's like we're so
Hmm.
fixated, and we start finding our identity in our occupations, in our roles. It's like, oh, I'm a father. I'm a. It's like, oh no, these are personalities, really. Like, uh, where's your identity found? And many people don't know. And I would argue, without Christ, you don't have a stable one. Um, but uh, this whole thing of changing personality, I think that's the whole thing. Like, of course, he's not using the same sense that I'm using it now. Like, this is a very more abstract usage of the word personality. But I would argue that your personality should be informed by your character and your identity, and that those are something that like your identity in Christ is, well, one is hidden from you, right? For your life is hidden in Christ Jesus. You've died, now your life is hidden in Christ Jesus. When Christ, who is our life, appears, we shall appear with him in glory. So it's like there's an aspect of like I don't fully know my identity because I don't fully know Christ. Like, and I'm growing in my knowledge, the true knowledge of Christ. And that's not something that's just like a knowing, and it's like a, I have to live these things out, and these things shape my character. That's why it says in Romans, right? Like we glory in our tribulations, knowing that it brings about perseverance, character, hope, and this hope does not disappoint. Like these type of
Yeah.
things, like you live them out, but then all your experience and all this informs whatever role you're stepping into in the day. Um,
Do you think that that's why it's so difficult for us to step into a situation that requires perseverance, something that we think might change us? That was something that I read the Mountain is You also, and that's something I took away from the book is like the way that you uh are resistant to change because if it goes well, you're still changing. So then that comfort zone that you're used to and that you have habituated, you're still forced outside of it, even if it's an improvement.
mhm.
And so there's this like, that's where the self sabotage comes in because you're like, I don't know if I deserve that or I don't know if I want that. Or so anyway, there's all these like ulterior motives that you have that keeps you from changing. So I'm just asking, like, yeah, do you think that's why it's so hard to change? Because we want to believe that we know who we are,
Mm.
or the persona that we have currently would need to, die and then be reborn, or something like that, in a different way. We need to be reformed.
Yeah. No, I think that's the whole thing. Like anyone who tries to cling to the life will lose it. Anyone who loses their life, that word life is psyche, right? Like so it's like
Mhm,
if you're
mhm.
clinging to this understanding, you're lean not upon your own understanding, but in all that you do acknowledge God and he will direct your paths. Like if you're leaning upon your understanding of who you are and you're clinging to it, where it's like that's an idol for one, like where and that's you find a sense of security. That's like home base, right? Uh and God is the God who wounds and heals. And so the word of God is sharper than any two-edged sword, cutting, dividing, discerning, cutting away. Like there's the need of that's why it says in James, right? Like oh actually let me just pull it up. It's like we that's why Paul says we glory in our tribulations, but it says in James, at the beginning of it, it's chapter 1. James is always I always pass over it because it's like super small. Um, Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Um, and it takes faith to step into a new role or to because you have to leap into it. And it's like your familiarity, your comfort zone is like, okay, I have experience backing. If I stay here, like I it's been working out for me so far, right? But I don't know what's going to happen to me when I step into that. I have to go on the base of faith, right? Like we live not by what we see, but by faith. And so that's the whole faith is the evidence of things unseen, of things, the substance of things hoped for. And so there has to be a hope tied with the step as well. Um,
Mhm.
and that's why that's given by Christ. He endured all things with joy. For the joy set before him, he endured all things. And so that's talking about he had a hope on the other side of him stepping into. And yeah, he that's the whole Gethsemane experience too, right? Like sweating blood. Take this away if there's any other way. Like, of course, that's part of the struggle. It's like we in our humanity we want to find any other way other than normally the way God is leading us, like because it's
Yeah.
new. It's I don't have any other thing that I've seen or heard that really securely can give me the uh what's the two sides of logic there's and deduct like I cannot deduce that this is a good idea. It's like I have to go on the basis of faith. Like no amount of past experience or reason can prove to me that this is a good idea, but I hear the voice of God leading me here. So it's like, all right, like that means I have to die in a way. Like whoever I thought I was before this, like part of that's dying. But then at the same time, like there's the beauty for ashes and like having like things get burnt up, but then you're surprised by what remains after the thing. It's like, but there is that moment of like this could be the loss of everything. This could mean that, but um, you're perfected. All the dross is wiped away through that process, and so um, Kierkegaard has this quote that I wrote down. He says, "If you're serious about proving a king's existence, you will demonstrate the king's existence by your submission, by the way you live. And so it is with demonstrating God's existence. It is accomplished not by proofs, but by worship. Any other way is but a thinker's pious bungling." And
Mm.
uh, I was listening to Jordan Peterson on George Janko's podcast, which I would highly recommend to like everybody listening to this. You should go and listen to that episode. It was phenomenal. But he was laying out that whole thing that Peterson does about worship and all that. And it's just an important thing to just. I feel like this time around, him maybe I was just in the right place to really hear it, or I think he just did a phenomenal way of articulating. It was very concise. He didn't do the word salad. Like he's really been trying to think of how can I actually best articulate this. And I think this time in this episode was the best I've heard him articulate it yet. But it's exactly what Kierkegaard's talking about. This like it's accomplished not by proofs but by worship. And what does it
Mhm.
mean to worship? Right? It's like to be devoted to be committed to. Um, and,
That's what Peterson said. So the just for people who don't know, the conversation is had many times. Why don't you just say, "I'm a Christian and I believe in the birth, death, the virgin birth, and the crucified death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ, like, why don't you just verbally assent in public to biblical doctrines? And he expressed his reasoning behind the different things, and then Janko sort of repeated the question. So, are you a Christian? And Peterson said, uh, well, what do you think? Like, what do you think looking at my life? What do you think? Because his point is that is the only true way that we can evaluate somebody. The words are one thing. And like, I know everybody has different verses to claim to extort that out of people, but really that's just like virtue signaling. And that's the thing that Peterson's trying to avoid, at the greatest cost. Like, whatever it takes, he's avoiding that. And so he's like, do you think that the life that I live that you get to see is consistent with Jesus' teachings
Mhm.
or the idea that he worships God? And I think that's up to everybody to answer if they want to. Like,
Yeah.
like, it's not that big a deal, but if it is, then dig in, look at him,
Yeah.
see what you think.
Yeah. And so I was gonna say that with this, even when we're talking about stepping into a new role and the whole anyone who clings to their life will lose it. It's like that's talking about anyone who's devoted to this, like you're gonna miss out. But if you're more devoted to Christ than you are to your own existence or your understanding of existence, uh, that's the whole thing. It's like, okay, where does your worship really lie if you're not willing to suffer the loss of all things, not willing to pick up the cross and follow him, right? Like, and I have to be
Mhm.
honest with myself. It's like, wow, I'm like super devoted to diversion. I'm super devoted to uh, my own future and a sense of security that I find in obtaining these accolades and the things that go with like a responsible citizen of America, right? Like, I'm more devoted to trying to get there sometimes than I am wherever Jesus is leading me in this moment. And so, therefore, I'm worshiping myself. I'm worshiping my comfort. I'm worshiping um, ambition, just even blind ambition. I mean, I need to appear as though I'm ambitious, right? By any means, I
Mhm,
don't
mhm.
care. I need to be showing that I'm making something with this life. And so, I don't know, just devotion. Like, what am I devoted to? Um,
Yeah, no, that's huge. I I had a quote that I saw recently. It was by way of Chris Williamson, but it's a Morgan Housel quote, and it's which of my strongest beliefs, or what is the strongest belief I hold based on secondhand information rather than firsthand experience? And uh I didn't answer the question, classic Ian. Uh, but it made me think of this idea that we hold these beliefs secondhand. So uh,
mm,
somebody else tells you something, you think, oh, that must be true. And then without testing it out, it's influencing the way that you think about whatever the topic is, whatever the domain of uh, whatever. And so what I was thinking is like, I think we need to get it into our heads that as soon as we identify a secondhand belief that we don't know if it's true or not, we need to uh like prototype it. We need to put it into action in a specific way so that you could see, aha, this is not good for me. So
mm,
I like firsthand experience is not consistent with my secondhand reports from someone else.
yeah,
That could just be because in general it's bad advice or bad thinking, but it could also just be it's not appropriate for you. You might just hold a group, sort of a groupthink opinion that has been imported to you, but then it's not consistent with you as a person, and you need to move past that. And by way of experience, you need to adopt something that's more appropriate to the type of person that you are, or the type of person that you want to be, like we've been talking about. It's like
yeah,
there are so many things that we just believe implicitly that we're not even aware of. But as soon as we become aware of those things, I think it's important to test them out. That's certainly my experience with like, I pretty much took like an anti-Christian sort of position in high school. It's like, yeah, that's nice, but I'm just gonna do whatever is not what you're saying to do, to my parents who were
yeah,
Christians. And because of that, then in my late teens, getting out of high school, I lived out a bunch of bad ideas that I had, and I had no idea they were bad ideas. I was like, I don't know, let's give it a shot. And I know other people were saying it, but those were sort of like my own concocted or whatever, like from cultural influence, ideas that were definitely secondhand. I had no direct experience with um, any of the things that I fell prey to. And then when I did, all of a sudden I was like, wow, those are really bad ideas. I think I should get some new and better ideas, And
Yeah.
uh yeah, so
Yeah.
I
There's
just trust in I just trust in people's abilities to be like I trust in the self-preservation instinct in everybody or something, like you
yeah.
you have an incentive to not live a terrible life. So
Oh, you'd be
if you
surprised.
find yourself I know I was gonna say, if you find yourself in a situation where it seems like you're working against your self-preservation, then that's a different problem. But as far as uh honest, genuine pursuit of what you think is best, as soon as you actually firsthand encounter it, I think be like, that's good, that's bad. Choose the good.
yeah. There's two more quotes I wanted to share that were on this page. This is a new page now, but um, and what you're saying too about the secondhand, that was the whole thing that Plato was big on. Was like he hated representations. That's the whole theory of form. Like go to the source, like
Yeah,
and
yeah.
especially representations of representations, which is that's what secondhand is. Like someone's instructing me, that's just a representation of your representation in your mind of the thing. So it's like true philosophy is trying to have genuine encounters with the topic at hand. But at the same time, Plato was very, I think, a little too idealistic, quite literally. And it's like, okay, how do we live this out? And that's where Aristotle, his whole critique of the forms was too. It's like, okay, this whole metaphysical thing is like not really helpful in daily living. And so these two
Mhm.
quotes are from Nicomachean Ethics, is Aristotle. He says there are two kinds of virtues: intellectual virtues and virtues of character. Intellectual virtues, for the most part, are created and developed through teaching, but character virtues come about through habit and hence need time and experience. And then 2 pages later, how exactly should we do the things we do? Because it is our actions that will determine what our dispositions end up being like. And so
Mm.
that's correlated with the whole what Pearson was saying. Changing personality means changing habits of action, presumption, and perception. Presumption is even just like predispositions, right? Like and perception, like and recognizing how much habits shape our and determine our dispositions, determine our presuppositions, how we're predisposed before we even start perceiving a thing. Um, and even how you perceive like these three things, how they're intercorrelated, interconnected. It's important to be conscientious about your habits of action, your presumptions, and your perceptions, right? And it's important to recognize even your virtues, right? Like an intellectual virtues, but then like the character virtues, that takes time and experience. And especially when you're of our age, right? Like you don't have much time and experience. And so um, you have a lot of intellectual virtues, maybe. I mean, depending on how you were taught, you were a disciple of somebody and they shaped what your virtues are, the things that you are pursuing. Your virtue literally means like this is what's valuable, therefore I'm going to be devoted to that value, right? So um, you better pray to God you had a good teacher, which the only good one is Jesus. Because if not, your
Yeah.
character is going to be developed in a way where you are bringing hell on earth instead of heaven on earth. So, and I still do that too, right? Like I have virtues in my mind that are not informed by the words of Christ, and I start bringing about hell in my life when I uh, don't repent and believe, right? Like don't let Him shape my perceptions and my presuppositions and my habits, right? And I then these how interconnected these all, but it all starts in the mind, right? It all starts with your presumptions, um, presuppositions, and so.
Yeah. Can you read that Peterson quote again? Did you have it written down
Well,
or
just
no?
the
The one about
changing personality.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
changing personality means changing habits of action, presumption, and perception.
I would imagine that he's familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy. But I was having the rudimentary elements of that explained to me on the most recent episode of Insight Incorporated. Um, Sorry for the audio. We had a snafu. It was my fault. Um, but Ken Tangle is a therapist, counselor, and he was explaining that your behaviors influence your thoughts, influence your feelings. And so all of the words that Peterson just used are sort of like fancier words for those things. And it's a cycle and they're interchangeable. So they all influence the others. And I think that is why, well, it's not why, it's just describing the way that it works. And so then when we're talking about conscientiousness, that's the key. It's like we've talked about metacognition on here before. It's like think about what you're thinking about,
Mm-hmm.
because you need to be aware. That's why DeMello's other book, Awareness, is like that's a really important concept to him. He spent a lot of time sitting alone and thinking and writing, because that was something that he keyed in on as freeing. This is an element of uh not an element. This is a practice that DeMello adopted, and it was able to influence the way that he thought, the actions that he took, and the presumptions or the perceptions that would be feeling, I think. Um, and yeah, I just wanted to point that out, that there's a deep connection between those things because they all influence one another.
Mm-hmm.
So our perception of something would dictate our action about it, or our thought about it, and then our action, and vice versa, or whatever, however you'd say that.
Yeah, and our preconceived convictions inform how we perceive a thing. Like they're filtered through. Actually, DeMillo had a
Yeah.
had a really cool meditation on that too. Just like recognizing that, like, uh, with our awareness, he's talking about blindness and how much our attachments uh, are like filters by which we receive
Mhm.
information.
Mhm.
And so, um, anyway, so with presuppositions, that's like even before you even have any type of actual experience with the thing, how you're already thinking before any information is given to you, your presuppositions form how you even perceive a thing before you even start perceiving it, let alone how you interpret what you're perceiving. So the presupposition part is the hardest to really get to as well. It's really hard to think about your presuppositions because they're so nascent. They're not in your conscious mind. It's very subconscious. It's very
Yeah.
um yeah, behind the scenes.
That's one of the things I appreciate about Nietzsche. And actually, I just saw, I can't remember who wrote it, but somebody was saying that there are two types of philosophers, like somebody that approaches something that's chaotic and tries to impose order upon it, like organize it, and then another person that comes upon something that's organized and then tries to introduce chaos to it, like to break it apart.
Mhm.
And so Nietzsche was discontent with uh, the Christian order that had been imposed on culture, and uh, I want to say like within reason or something, like to some degree I can agree with that,
Yeah.
because I think that like the Inquisition would be a good example of Christian order that's not conducive to what the Bible talks about, and etc. There's lots more instances of that. So uh what I appreciated about Nietzsche is that he's always he has a line about how he tried to philosophize with a hammer. He was trying to break every idea that he came across, because if he couldn't break it, he felt like that was true.
Mm.
And that's just, I think, a good way to approach anything that you're building. Like it's a um it's like quality control for an engineer, like stress testing your composition. And so if it's your thoughts, or if it's your behaviors, or if it's your feelings, like you should stress test them to some extent.
Yeah. Pascal had a thought that I was reading the other day. I don't remember. I'm not going to find it either, but he's saying something about, he's addressing exactly that, just like the climate of intelligentsia. And he was like, it would make sense if reason was reasonable. But
Mm,
it's like
mm.
recognizing that, like, your reason is informed by your fallen nature. So even reason is unreasonable. Like, there's no getting around how unreasonable reason is. Like, because you are the one reasoning. And so it's like how unreasonable
Yeah,
you
yeah.
are. Like, no matter how
Yeah.
much you try to get around it, like, reason is unreasonable from a certain
Um
perspective, always, right? Like, so that would be the funny thorn in the side, right? Like, and this is, I'm not gonna bring up the Corinthian passage. I'm not gonna do it. You hate it. I'm not gonna do it.
we've done it before. I was going to quote myself, actually.
Oh,
Uh I just started a Substack, so everybody go follow my Substack, Ian Quest at Substack, and I'll put the link in the bio for fun. Um, but this was from a post on knowingness. It says, we need outside perspectives to balance our lack of knowledge. When in fear, we attempt to conform others to our own opinions, we subvert our own mission. We nullify the knowledge of others because it disagrees with us.
Mm,
I I think that that happens to us more often than not. But we were talking before about like how you can't just be an individual. Like it doesn't really work like that at all. And so this need for others, uh I what I said there was like there's a way of being with other people that means you're conforming them to what you believe, or you've at least identified a group that you're willing to be conformed to. But rather than that, I think you said earlier that Christ redeems this
mm.
like aspect of us, the cultural aspect of humanity. What I see in the body of Christ depictions that Paul tries to describe it as, and other New Testament authors, I think I see this like mosaic, like we fit together, but we were not designed to fit together, or we're we are fitted together. We don't perfectly match. We're not uniform cogs in a machine. It's like much more colorful than that. And we find that God has an interesting way of grouping us together and building what it is that he's building.
And allowing
And
for
it's
contradiction.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Because yeah, that's a whole other thing about beneficial adversaries, but like opponent processing is the way that your brain works. Like your left hemisphere and your right hemisphere, and they oppose each other and they think differently, but they find a stability in that opposition that you couldn't have if it was all one-sided. And so when you get into these echo chambers, when you get into groups that all think and speak and act the same, then I think you're predisposing yourself to some imbalance. Like obviously,
Mm.
because you're not willing to listen to the other side. Um, but so this that's the typical like that's the base level of unity. Okay, we're all going to just agree that we think the same thing. That's not really conducive to the truth, like you're not in a situation where the truth can arise because you're like, well, do we all think it? I guess maybe two or three of us do, but let's just shut up and we're going to keep this unity
Yeah.
rather than uh and I think that's the whole point. Like the body of Christ only arises when you believe in the truth, like capital T. That's a whole thing that Jesus talks about. He's the truth. So then, if you believe in the supremacy of the truth and worth, the worthiness, like that's the root of worship, the worthiness of truth, then you're able to like allow for it to pop up and surprise you, and then you can change directions as a group, and you can reason with one another. Not to use reason as the end all be all, because we just said reason that can be flawed, but I'm saying like there is a certain element of like negotiating social life culture uh, that is informed by truth or by reality. So anyway, I wanted to bring that quote up because I thought that our impulse to move away from the people that would stabilize us
Mm.
is so universal. You just see it everywhere. Everybody's grouped up based on this imbalanced approach of like, well, we all think the same thing, so that's a good group.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's an important thing about contradiction too. Is like when I said that, I forgot you were saying something like how God allows for. I was gonna say how God allows for contradiction even within Himself. Like there's contradictory impulses even within God. Like he. There's
Mhm.
moments in the prophets where he's saying like I have this desire, but no, I'm not going to do that because I am who I am, and who I am allows for this to be a reality. But I'm also able to move in it, and I'm okay
Mhm.
with it. Even with the whole like, there's a lot of examples. There's a lot of examples I could pull, but how much we cannot bear contradiction, and logic cannot bear contradiction. To be honest, that's why I think logic is flawed. Not always. There's many things where you really do need the dilemma and you need it to be sorted out.
It's the thing with habituation and comfort, though. That I've been thinking of this quote of I can't remember his name. He's the cognitive scientist from Toronto, John Vervaeke,
Okay.
and he talks about how everything in our culture reveals the fact that we want things to be more graspable. It's a very like rudimentary
Mm,
aspect of our biology, and so everything is smooth. Your laptop is smooth. Your phone is smooth. The studio that he's filming the video that I'm referring to, it's all white walls and like everything is so smooth. And the point of that is to uh, to not have any complexity.
mm.
And so like you lose complexity because the point is simplicity, graspability. And anyway, it was a great point that he's making that our impulse is towards that reductionism. And because of that, we lose what is real because we're hyper focused on us. We want it to be only what is within our focus. Nothing exists outside of our focus.
Yeah. There's a I ordered this like, like pre-made quote posters because I'm trying to decorate my room. Which is really hard for me because that's not really my
Cute.
it's not my thing. Yeah, thank you. But there was a
Yeah, James needs a girlfriend.
yeah, well, I'm not gonna lie. But
Our audience is 100% male. Like on YouTube, it's
is it
literally,
actually?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Well, if you have a sister, no.
yeah.
There's a Walt Whitman quote that was with the quotes, and it says like, "Do I contradict myself? Very well, I contradict myself. I am very vast. I contain multiplicity or multitudes. I contain
Mm,
multitudes." And so I
mm,
like that a lot. It's just I like Whitman a lot, even though he's. I hate this whole like you can't detach the art from the artist type thing. Like I don't subscribe
ah,
to that at all because we all contain multitudes. Just people just
mm,
don't know how to deal with that, and so they can't handle contradiction. But that's just part of living. That's the whole entire Kierkegaard. Go back and watch the Kierkegaard episode because that's the whole entire point. That's what it means to be an individual. It's like no system can do away with any of the contradictions. Life is full of contradictions, and it takes faith to overcome them and to move with them and in them, and so not that like obviously you're gonna like bring more complexity to your life and contradict everything. Like obviously that's not the point. Anarchy is not what we're getting at here. That's it's just that going back to the cult mentality, right? It's like and the whole proselytizing. This is a cool full circle here. It's like I'm already shaky in my conviction and I can't stand anything else that can contradict my conviction here. So therefore, I'm going to bend what around me to try to simplify in such a way that's untrue. I'm lying because I can't handle contradiction. I'm not emotionally intelligent enough. I'm not developed. My character's not developed well enough, and my identity is not found as something that's secure enough to handle contradiction. Uh,
mm-hmm.
and so, yeah, contradiction is that's just the nature of reality. And it takes faith to not even circumnavigate. It's just like to handle it. I think I don't know because even to say that is to say like you
Yeah,
need to get away from the contradictions. Like no, you just need to be able to live and just like live in reality and not try to
yeah,
shape reality in a way that's like more manageable for you, but to like be willing to die, I guess.
yeah. No, seriously. Um, yeah, I think it's resilience, and this goes back to the conscientious thing. Like, uh, I think that somebody that is conscientious necessarily develops resilience just through the actions that they take. A conscientious person is usually characterized by willingness to participate in whatever's going on in a helpful way, a proactive way, lots of other things, but just that bias towards action is sort of it's a very agentic idea, like that you would take responsibility for what's happening. And um, yeah, I think that's definitely a very interesting aspect of living life because there's a lot of schools of thought, especially in Christianity, that sort of say, I don't know, I guess maybe it's a more deterministic view, but even if people are technically subscribed to, a free will view of the world, they don't necessarily want to accept the freedom that they've been given, like you were saying before. Like you've been given freedom for a reason,
Mm.
and so
And to treat people with dignity,
yeah.
recognizing that they also have freedom.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a huge thing with contradiction. Like no. Contradiction means saying a different thing. Like you have to say what I say,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
vice versa. I
It's
have
like,
to say what you say.
what I want to
Yeah.
do is the thing to do. You say, are you contradicting me? It's like, you want to do something else?
Right.
How dare you?
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it's tragic. Are we landing the plane?
Yeah.
Okay. I kind of wanted to
Read the First Corinthians passage.
Dang, you read my mind. No, I want to read this Pascal quote. It's kind of lengthy and it's a little bit contradictory to this whole, like, be prudent, plan for the future, be disciplined, and think about where you're going. This is another side to contradict that in a way that I think is helpful. But bear with me with the length, but I think it's worthwhile. He says, we never keep to the present. We recall the past, we anticipate the future as if we found it too slow in coming and we're trying to hurry it up. Or we recall the past as if to stay its too rapid flight. We are so unwise that we wander about in times that do not belong to us and do not think of the only one that does. So vain that we dream of times that are not and blindly flee the only one that is. The fact is that the present usually hurts. We thrust it out of sight because it distresses us. And if we find it enjoyable, we are sorry to see it slip away. We try to give it the support of the future and think how we are going to arrange things over which we have no control for a time we can never be sure of reaching. Let each of us examine his thoughts. He will find them wholly concerned with the past or the future. We almost never think of the present. And if we do think of it, it is only to see what light it throws on our plans for the future. The present is never our end. The past and the present are our means, the future alone our end. Thus, we never actually live, but hope to live. And since we are always planning on how to be happy, it is inevitable that we should never be so.
That is a banger.
Yeah, do with that what you will.
Thanks, James. This has been excellent.
This is fun.
As always.
Yeah.
Love the grab bag episode.
I don't know why I don't like the sound of that. Grab bag doesn't, it's just. But I did too. This is great. Till next time, man. I love you.
All right. Love you too.